consistency so far. Seen a bit of his Widowmaker. It's good, but it's nowhere near the level of consistency as that Tracer.
It does appear that our first map is going to be well. Well, what do we have here?
Capture the objective.
And nothing too unsurprising out from either of these teams, actually. And I suppose this isn't something we touched on much, but of course with the IEU up Huss side of things, we do get, as they're fielding right now, the Tracer Sombra side of things. So Blank already kind of taking this early positioning in the hut along the side here. That does give Talon some room to maneuver on the point, but Blank now starting to try to push them back. They're starting to route out the back line as well. Trill does trade his life for that, but that is a trade Blank are more than happy to take from this point on. It's basically looking like cleanup. They will get the point.
The thing is, Blank got themselves cornered very early on, but they found the dive a lot quicker than Talon Esports, who themselves couldn't actually break through that choke point. Blank, though, they see the backline, Trill jumps in, gets assistance from IEU up, and then both supports on the other side, Haru and MCD, they go down very quickly.
Huss just building some ultimate charge on the side. Doesn't actually get too much for Yes to back away, but he is definitely leading Persia. And that's something Blank really need here. They need to start snowballing into this defense, start pushing this into the higher percentages. Dive getting in very aggressively. Trill does need to be careful with his life here because they're not getting that same dive onto the back line. Trill's going to go down. EMP is up. Big connect. Lots of members, but Talon have for now weathered the storm. They do lose the front line officially, and it's only Haru who is in a lot of trouble right about now. Looks like he's just going to have the back right out with his DPSs. They do get to come back in with their own EMP though here, Talon, so it's not all bad.
After 2 fight wins for Blank Esports, they're going to get at least 50% off of this. In fact, if Talon win, you can expect Blank to maybe even push it up to 60. They do, however, like you mentioned, the EMP that they have, it's going to be very important here. It can shut down Tung very easily. If Tung uses Coalescence at the wrong time, could be bad.
They're looking for it, and Persia's already connected the EMP, but the follow-up isn't quite there, not convincingly. Trill's still alive, even going down at this late point. They have traded with the Ragnate, and the EMP has run out. That means Huu gets to commit a self-destruct. He gets to reset the mech. Resident or Ragnate, though, Persia going down, this is a really tough one for Talon. They've actually got ultimates. They've got the deeper pockets here, but they've got to leverage these tank ultimates. They get the point at last and should be able to start leveraging this into a fight win here, unless EduUp or Huss start to get a big string of kills. No, EduUp's going to get mowed down. It does look like Talon are at least stable on that point grab.
That's a tough loss because Blank actually ended up using both support ultimates there. Now, Tung actually had the Coalescence ready as the EMP came down. Didn't get himself caught in the EMP at all, so the Coalescence did a good job, reasonably good job of keeping his members alive. Now, the Curacao barrack to try and finish out the game, but unfortunately for Blank, that fight was already lost. They had already lost that point as well.
It does mean they commit a lot, but they are cycling into some key ultimates. Raphael, decent connect on Huu, but it looks like they're going to be able to top him up, nearly pressuring out some dangerous members on the side. That's an EMP connect, though, out of Huss. Follow-up looking to come in. Yeah, Tung's dead as well, alongside Kuru, who went down much earlier. And unfortunately, the trades are not coming through the way of Blank, rather. And these are the ultimates they had banked up a moment ago. They kind of had them at their disposal. Talon, they still have stall tools, if not tools to just outright win from here. Huu demeked a second time, no self-destruct to preserve it. Trill is basically sole tank here, and he's not really tanking for many members here. EduUp able to get back into the fight, though. Talon have kind of given more ground than they really needed to there.
And Trill was able to get himself a decent amount of kills in the middle of that as well, despite the fact that Tung went down mid-Coalescence. He used it straight away, died straight away. Trill comes in with a couple of kills. Blank Esports then coming in and securing the rest of that fight, then they get the cap.
I'm liking this decisive play out of Talon. The EMP in quickly and the follow-up closing out on Huu as well. Now, Haru is an unfortunate member to have gone down. That is not ideally who you would trade in that situation, and it did afford Blank a small window, but Talon were clever, or at least well-positioned enough to kind of slam that window shut nice and quick.
This is going to be a difficult one for Talon to continue on. No Transcendence, no EMP. EMP, of course, was used to secure that last fight, but they need win conditions for the last 30% here. Very important.
That was a right-click hack from Huss onto Raphael is what I'm trying to get out of my mouth there. Aragne in a little bit too deep for a bit too long, and Slavega as well. Talon just lack a front line now. Blank should just be able to start cleaning up this fight from here. I don't see the recovery mechanic for Talon. That means they cap it back at 99%. Talon still don't have members run. They're just trickling back in. First point's going to go the way of Blank.
Right at the end there, Talon, unfortunately, look, they had to use a little bit too much in that previous fight to get themselves back in. Coming into that final engagement, no EMP, no Transcendence, not enough tools to hold off a Blank, who then had ultimates coming up online, such as Tung's Coalescence, abilities that unfortunately for Talon Esports, they just didn't quite have counters ready.
Yeah, that was quite back and forth as well. The EMPs were kind of a cornerstone of every single fight in which they came out. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with Talon's execution off the back of them. It's not been a problem area necessarily in the past, but it has been an area where they could have tidied things up. And I would say, at least based off that, they kind of have. Unfortunately, though, it's other aspects of the dive when they don't have the EMP that aren't quite there for this team right now.
And we need to see Talon work on those early engagements as well. I believe we should be heading back into Ilios at any moment as well. Next map, hopefully...
like Ruins. And that's interesting because that does mean we are going to get that Eat You Up Widowmaker that we've been talking about. It's going to be coming toe-to-toe with Persia. It's MCD who's the first casualty of the fight, though, and you can already see Persia having taken a few shots. Means Talon are probably going to get forced off this point slowly but surely as Trill and Hulu can start exerting some pressure.
We'll see if Talon can manage to get any counter trades, but so far both teams down as well. MCD trying to come back into this fight from spawn. While that's happening, they lose a couple more members. This is just unfortunately not going to be the fight for Talon.
Yeah, that does mean that the point open up is going to go the way of Blank, and it was a late catch onto
Eat Up did die.
Yeah, in response there out of Persia. And Eat You Up was playing a little bit fast and loose with that sightline at the very end there. Does afford Talon a window.
Let's talk about the ultimates here as well, because Huss is not quite on the EMP just yet. Pulse Bomb did come out of Raphael, but no catch for him either. Talon Esports, they're looking to clean up this camp, but they need to start converting kills.
Trill very early to pop the Primal Rage there, but it is well worth it. They've got the two supports down off the back of it, and it means they can keep this dive going without having to commit anything else into it. That was a smart call by Trill to recognize that opportunity. Ends up being a very low economy fight win. Normally you'd want to preserve the Primal Rage for maybe a stall or something.
Still waiting for the EMP from Huss as well, which is going to be important for this coming fight. Now both support ultimates ready for Blank Esports as well. Talon had already used the Infrasight. We didn't quite get to see Persia take down Eat You Up while that was happening. In fact, didn't quite see him take down anybody. So Talon, they can't find these opening picks. Blank though, they have been consistently finding them every time.
Yeah, now they're going to be coming up into their own Infrasight. They've got the EMP already committing it out as well. Once again, just the dive onto Haru and MCD is so quick out of Blank. They're so prepared to get in the thick of it. They are ready for their EMP when it connects. They're always getting it onto the right members and able to get past the tanks, kill these supports every time. Talon just keep ending up with nothing to go on in these fights.
Who are right there doing the thing that he loves to do the most as a Diva player. Stagger out another Diva player. Talon Esports now going to be changing onto their own Sombra. With Persia now stepping off the Widowmaker, this is going to give Eat Up some space to work with, but also it's space in front of him. It's the space behind him he has to be concerned about, because both Persia and Raphael should have his number if they can get the flank.
And again, they're just diving straight onto the back line. MCD already down before he can Transcendence. That is a tool they sorely needed for that fight. Now that means Tung and Kura can both just kind of commit their ultimates with impunity. Haru as well, caught out alone on the side, trying to regroup with his tank, who were diving desperately for the point. Now it's MCD, the sole healer, with Slay Vega already out of the mech. Arachne has got the Primal Rage. It's preserved his health total, but MCD, he's still just trying to get in with this Transcendence. I don't know if he can even get to Arachne in time. No, he can't. A little bit too late. The hack comes in onto Trill, but this is kind of too little too late at this point for Talon, and another EMP from Huss looks like it is going to seal the deal, slam the door shut at 100-0 for the second point of Ilios, is going to earn Blank the first map win of the series.
And look at the ult charge rate for the other members as well. Trill getting a second Primal Rage, and the Eat Up still untouched in the back. Huss with the EMP right when they needed to secure the game. This is very different to what we saw in Well when you consider Talon's lack of those win conditions right at the end when they needed them. Very difficult sometimes to win 100-0. For Talon, you need to see them win one crucial fight. When there's 100-0, there should be that one fight in there where Talon can come back, but you didn't quite see it. You saw also the partway through hero swap as well, very late Sombra to come in, didn't quite get the EMP up, and no response to Eat Up.
And the thing that gets me about that is, well, prior to that, it had actually come quite close. Like, there were a couple of moments there where if it had been a little bit more in the way of Talon, they could well have closed out that map. And I find it surprising, therefore, that they didn't really get anything on Ruins. I mean, they weren't even able to get proactive in their own right. But I suppose the thing I really have to say about that is actually it shows Blank's proficiency on that map more than anything else. And it's not actually just the Widowmaker out of Eat You Up. In reality, it's the way the team is able to play it, the proactivity and the aggression. Like I said, Talon never really even had a chance to dive. They They were always getting dough.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's exactly what enables Eat You Up on the Widowmaker. It's part of the reason why he had a reasonably successful Widowmaker. Now, I say success in a loose term because it's not like he got a lot of kills. He got a decent amount of kills, but he didn't get all the kills. What he did have was a lot of pressure on sight lines, and that pushes Talon back. That makes Talon have to play much more defensively. That means for Talon, they can't use certain angles. It's much more difficult for them to approach, especially when Persia is also losing those deals. Now, taking that and rolling with it a little bit though, Persia did get one counter trade against Eat You Up. He did kill him in that 1v1 one time, but even then, wasn't enough of an advantage for Talon to actually break through.
Exactly, and I think there's an element of confidence that comes out of Eat You Up with that as well. I mentioned it at the time, said playing a bit fast and loose with the sight lines, it's recognizing that he can, but he also intentionally pushes it a bit sometimes because he has the confidence to connect shots against a team like Talon here that pays off a lot. And the other thing as well is he can do it because of how the rest of his team plays. Even when he does go down in the counter trade, the rest of his team is still exerting enough pressure that they can still win the fight without too much difficulty from there. By that point, his job is already done. We did see our second map come up just a moment ago as well. I believe we're going to be going to Numbani. So we should have that coming through confirmed in just a moment.
And that one is going to be Talon's pick as the loser here. Of course, loser picks the map and the winner picks the side. Expecting Blank to defend first. Also potentially expecting Blank to maybe make a lineup swap here. This is usually where you do see CKM come in. You want him here for the projectile picks. He does play a Pharah on, as far as well as a Genji, both on Numbani. We've seen now plenty of Numbani gameplay from Blank. So I would say that's within the realm of possibility.
There is one thing to note, though, about CKM coming in this instance. It's something we haven't, like, I don't want to say that this is a consistent thing necessarily or that this is an issue for Blank, but certainly in a couple of their recent performances, when they're brought in CKM for the second map, he does come in a little bit cold compared to the rest of the team. I say a little bit, but in our most recent showings of them, it was a bit rough. They didn't look as clean and as tidy as they had on their opening map necessarily. This is actually quite a big window, I would say, for Talon.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because the last time we saw Blank and Numbani was their Week 5 matchup against Yoshimato and Count, who are not here, unfortunately, and for that specific matchup on Numbani, that was a loss for Blank Esports. However, enough of CKM, he's not going to be making
we say all that.
At least not yet, but it was worth saying because the history does say that usually on map 2, you will see CKM on a history being maybe the last couple of weeks, because at the start of the season, it was CKM starting and Eat You Up wasn't even seen for the most part. So now, Eat Up and Huss, this seems like the combo.
And this is a bit of an interesting one as well, because if Talon were expecting the substitution and it now hasn't come through, they might not know exactly what to expect. This is a bit, I don't want to say a pocket strategy from Blank, but this is a little bit left field, going to be unexpected, and the Torbjorn absolutely plays into that.
It's extremely out of left field because you don't often see the Orisa Junkrat Torbjorn here. You might see the Torbjorn maybe.
We've seen it once so far.
Everything else is a little bit strange. Talon will certainly need to be able to adjust to this. By the way, Talon only have one healer.
Oh man, yeah, they're all over this though. They've kept tabs on it, sent Persia in around the side, having already killed Eat You Up. But it's the main body of Blank here. It's the Orisa Junkrat that was able to withstand the brunt of that, even as Tongue was getting pressured.
Now here's the problem compositionally for Talon Esports. Because they only have one healer, they can't afford to take too much poke damage. The issue with that is, you're going up against a Junkrat, he's going to throw mines out at you. You're going up against a Torbjorn, the turret's going to damage you, so you have to be able to get past the early damage, forcing both supports down the swap.
And this kind of increases the snowball here for Blank. They're coming up on a Riptide. If they can win a fight off that, then they start to get into the Molten Core. This is uphill now for Talon for at least the next 2 minutes. And already trying to get in on this next fight, they're getting beaten back. Arachne is too low to continue this dive. And as the Riptide comes out, doesn't even finish off Arachne. He was in full retreat. He catches a DPS and a support instead. It's still a fight win with plenty of room to breathe for Blank.
Now here's the strange thing for Talon Esports. They also swapped off the Sombra. The Sombra itself would have been a great pick for Blank Esports is running. You want that EMP to shut down everything. It shuts down the shielding. It makes Trill a little bit useless. Obviously, Hoover on the Diva doesn't get a lot done either. In fact, for most of the heroes, an EMP would be pretty ideal. They're not going to have that anymore. Talon have to just brute force it with a dive.
It shuts down a Torbjorn turret as well, notably, which means even if the Molten Core is out, you effectively remove a big portion of that ultimate from the fight. But now instead, Tung's going to be coming up on that during the fight. They need to kill him quick smart to make this stick. No, he's got the Molten Core. He's even being a bit conservative with it. Yeah, popping it out now because he does really value the health total, even though he doesn't currently have a turret up, and it's paying off. They're withstanding the brunt of this push from Talon. Already getting Slavega's mech. That's another Riptire here for Husk. This one's going to have to really count, actually. He has no, it's not. Persia's got that. They've got no DPSs now. It's all on Trill and Huwu. Tung's already dead. It's Kura solo healing with no opportunities for a res either. Eatup's going to pop onto the Tracer to get back into the fight quickly, but by the time he gets there, he's going to find he's got no frontline for himself. I think Blank just have to let this point go.
And I think we forgot to mention, look, for all the resources Blank Esports had, what if they just misfire? That's exactly what happened. No turret to use with the Molten Core. You mentioned that if the EMP hits the turret, that takes out a big part of the ultimate gone.
Yeah.
But what if he just doesn't have the turret to start with? That was one of the factors. Also, the Tie not getting any kills. Unfortunately, that means Blank don't have the tools to win.
That was really incredible as well because there was that tiny little window at about 85%. Is what Tung started that fight with. So getting the turret in that window was great from Talon, recognizing that as a factor and dealing with it very, very quickly. They are really identifying the threats and their own win conditions within that already. Persia in with the Dragon Blade here again. It's that same notion. They know what they want to do. They know how they want to play. They're expecting this early dive from Blank, and they were well set up for it. That means Talon are going to keep the payload rolling.
They certainly are, but Blank maybe just get a couple of ultimates there. Very important for Blank to make sure the snowball pressure is relieved. Now they do lose the fight, but because they get the important ultimates, that means that Talon can't use the same important ultimates to actually get the card across the line, which is where you would want to use your ultimates if you had them.
And you can see how Talon are now playing very far forward. Once again, they're expecting Blank to come, to this cart, and that means they want to put as much resistance on the way there. They don't want Blank to just dive in for free. Trying to pressure out these tanks now as they go in on the dive. Haven't got the conversion just yet on the back line. Haru low as he is. Slaveg is down though as he was out of the mech channeling the self-destruct, which didn't get anyone on the side of Blank. So already a positive trade in the way of Blank. Trill as well able to retain his life throughout that. Arachne is right on the wrong side of this fight, which means he can't put any pressure on the back line of Blank as Blank continue their dive inward, but the rest of Talon have been able to kind of pull back and recoil from it.
Oh, counter trades!
Yeah, tons. Wow, with the coalescence to get those two. He can't do much against these tanks though, so Talon should be able to stabilize off the back of this, but Blank do have a closer respawn here. Kura goes down. It is just Tung alone at the point. I think there should still be a point cap here for Talon, thanks to those tanks still being alive.
Oh,
but Talon,
there's still kills!
I don't believe it. They're actually getting these kills here, and that means Talon are going to end up getting rebuffed, having also thrown in some really crucial ultimates.
I was just going to say that even if Talon had won that fight, even if Blank had unfortunately failed to defend that orc, it would have still been a pretty decent fight for Blank. They got a lot of ultimates out of Talon, but in fact, they actually win the fight. A couple of things that Blank did quite well was A, they got the ultimates, but B, also dragging the fight away from the card itself, making sure that Talon do not have objective pressure. That makes sure that the card does not count.
And I have to say, the real swing point there was probably Tung killing Persia mid-Dragon Blade with the Coalescence. I mean, the second kill from that point on was just a bonus. That was the tool that Talon were using to try and close out the fight. And yeah, the EMP early in, I think that's just a right-click hack out of Persia. He's only just swapped onto the Sombra. But speaking of EMP, Huss is going to be coming up on his in a moment. Reset there onto Arachne. He comes back into a Transcendence, which is now over. But this is now a numerical advantage. Not so much anymore. The EMP straight into a Pulse Bomb. And now Blank just want to pile on the pressure. They've still got Huwu, who can still reset the mech. Eatup doesn't even care that he got hacked out by Persia. He's going to be just fine. There's the mech reset. Blank's still going to hold this payload.
And a big part of that EMP as well was shutting down Arachne from using the Primal Raid. So for Talon Esports, they just didn't quite have enough tools, and now they get to come back with potentially their own EMP, the real one, not the fake one that I mentioned previously. But for Blank Esports, this is the most dangerous fight we have, however, on Ilias. Already seen the situation play out. This time around, though, Persia needs to make sure he catches Tung, preferably also with the Troll. Got to get rid of the Coalescence.
And you can see this Blank already setting up around the back side. It doesn't matter if Persia EMPs because there's going to be no supports left. I mean, who's able to follow up on this, right? Persia's already low. He's not even going to be able to heal up, which means he can't commit that EMP into the fray here. Talon are now effectively trickling. They do at least get the Primal Rage for Arachne. That buys them some time, but they're going to have to get on the payload. Raphael's going to do it for them. Does actually catch Kura with a Pulse Bomb. There's still an opportunity here for Talon if they can get the members in here, if they can get the EMP out and follow up on it. But with Arachne down, it's going to be just Vega on the front line. There is that EMP. Where's the follow-up now? Because Blank are still alive in this, despite not even having support ults, and Huss is about to come up with his own EMP. Oh, he's able to stay alive just by the skin of his teeth, as there's the commitment to close out the fight for what will be the last time here on Blank's defense on Numbani, as the kills slide their way, and that is as far as that card's going to go.
And Blank get that dream defense in there, the one that they weren't supposed to win. That is a mark of a truly good team, because a lot of teams would not have completed that defense. A lot of teams would have unfortunately had to fall back, let that cap gone through. We'd already be on to see this would have been a much better offense for the Talon side. The other thing that we saw from Talon was, it was pointed out that final engagement, they had the correct tools, they had the EMP ready to go. They just had to use it on the correct members. The thing is, Blank made their dive so early. We talked about the proactivity of this team. They got in there, they got the couple of trades, and even if the EMP comes out after that, there's not enough Talon members to actually make use of it. Talon already onto the back foot, don't even have time to really wait for respawners. The EMP finally comes out, but it had to be a desperation EMP because there is nothing left.
And they even still had a bit of a window in there, but I have to say, I mean, I complimented Talon on it a moment ago, but that final fight was Blank recognizing Talon's win condition. Blank therefore recognizing that their own win condition was to nullify Talon's win condition, and they did so doing what has worked so well. Aggressive dives onto these supports. When they get those 2 kills, when they get that conversion on the dive, Talon struggle.
You need to see Talon able to adapt to that, right? The way they should be adapting is saying, okay, if Blank are going to make these aggressive plays, it is still punishable. We can play for a disengage here. They want to split their own team up. We can EMP the engagers. We can EMP the divers. Those will get killed. We will get a player advantage, and then we can push through, cap out B, move on to C. That's how Talon should have been playing, but that's all in hindsight because we're already onto the other side, Talon defending.
Yeah, hindsight, as they say, is 20/20, but it is also never too late. In fact, it isn't too late until you are down and out at the end of map 3 if it ends up sliding that way. So still plenty of time for Talon to start recognizing these things, start adapting, and on their defense, very much still an opportunity to full hold.
By the way, running Raphael onto the Widowmaker, I do somewhat believe this could be a counter pick to what Blank usually won, which is a Fire here. But you don't see CKM, and Huss isn't going to be the one playing the Fire. He's going to be the one playing the Sombra instead, so Raphael has got his work cut out for him.
Preloading the Zen Orb there actually onto I Eat You Up allowed him to notice both those traps, take the damage, and not get in trouble for it. That means they know exactly what Talon are running. That's why Huss and I Eat You Up are kind of wrapping around this side while the rest of the team goes on the front. It's not unusual to do that anyway, but they know exactly what they're looking for. That's why Persia went down so quickly. Now it's just clean dive and clean up from that point on. It is that same identification of win conditions and execution thereafter.
Now Huss did manage to go down, and Persia's finally back up, but we don't have enough secure and reliable DPS there. While Talon were backing up, they're giving Blank so much space. That's why the cap came out so quickly. Persia, we needed to see him alive. He was the key member. Him dying destroys that entire defense.
And that's kind of the risk with the Junkrat trap. Maybe you get a catch, but you do also telegraph your team comp. That plus the Widowmine is what really sealed the deal. Like I said, Blank knew exactly what they were walking into. They knew that Talon couldn't fight on the point itself. That was great execution from Blank. Now it's about trying to get a snowball going.
And the problem is, if the snowball does not stop, we're going to see a very quick cap out. Talon could not defend onto A. They needed a good time onto A to even force overtime onto B. Blank have got a lot of time now to work with on this offense, and they can just use it to get a bunch of ultimates that Talon cannot deal with.
And I mean, speaking of, right, this EMP is nearly up. Huss did actually get detected on his way past there. They do know he's on the back side. Talon have got to be expecting this wraparound. You see where Blank in position. You got EU up on the left side here. The Riptide has got to pull weight here. It's got to do work. He's looking for EU up. Doesn't find him, looking for something else. They'll get Hubu's mech.
EMP was used.
That, it was used, but between that and Trill being down, there may be enough for Talon to stabilize. Not if they keep losing members like this. Slay Vega's going to have to get a great ultimate into the mix here. Raphael's even forced out. The follow-up is here from ADU up. No such luck on the headshot. The snowball still happens for Blank, despite Talon reading that, despite the tanks going down.
We even have a Transcendence out from NCD. He's going to have to use it right now. He might not even get there.
No!
Does not touch the card.
Ultimate from Trill, nicely timed.
And that is going to be a 2-0 now for Blank Esports. And I got to talk about that last composition there for Talon as well. Talk about the fact that the Widowmaker's a little bit odd on that A defense. Couldn't quite get the value. You saw how important it was. Persia dying as a Junkrat for Blank. Then the only remaining DPS there, Raphael, can't quite get the consistency and damage. He loses the space as well. Note that the Junkrat also gives you a lot of space to play with. He's a great area controller. I mean, Widowmaker kind of is, but your team needs to be able to get into the base of the other team for that to happen. Them falling back, getting onto the B point, again, can't quite find good angles, gets in 1v1s with Eat You Up. He doesn't win those. You're not meant to win those. Tracer is usually meant to win those. So, of course, one of your DPSs just unfortunately can't pull the weight.
And there was a really interesting thing there. There's two fights I want to draw a very direct comparison between. It's the final fight on Blank's offense and the final fight on Blank's defense. And the reason I draw the comparison, the one on the defense, you saw Talon lose their 2 supports, unable to commit the EMP after that because they weren't confident that they could follow up on it and they were already in disarray. You see the counterpoint to that, which was Blank's final fight, they'd lost both of their tanks. That's kind of comparable in that situation because, again, you commit the EMP, you're still looking to follow up on it with your DPSs and with the rest of the components of that dive, in that situation the tanks, but it is very suboptimal when the tanks are lacking. But it is the caliber of Blank in comparison to Talon here that they could still commit the EMP and clean up the kills, having the confidence to do so between Huss and I Eat You Up. That right now is what's separating those two teams. That right now is why Blank lead the series.
And we'll see exactly how far Blank can maybe push the series over, or if Talon can in fact bring it back in swing for themselves. After this break, Talon versus Blank will continue.